throughout the history of this channel so far, we've always, well, not always, the majority of the time, we have talked about indie bands specifically from, I'd say, the late 90s to most of the time it's in the early 2010s. So about a 10 to 15 year stretch is typically where we stay. And from time to time, we might have included newer bands, or maybe at the very most, older bands with new material. However, I would say this week, it's one of the most surprising and I hope really come up stories that we've ever produced and talk about yet on this channel. The Paradox is who we are talking about. They are a pop punk or punk band, and honestly, doing the research for this group was the hardest yet, because we have had bands on this channel as well with very little documentation on them. I think of bands like Rah Rah Riot. I think of bands like Japanese Breakfast, and a few others on this channel, maybe like the Naked and Famous, where finding out deep information is difficult. And the Paradox, the reason why their info is so difficult to get to is because of how new this band is. They just came out as a group in 2025. So yes, this is the youngest group that we have talked about yet on this channel. But when I stumbled on them, I forget where it was on some kind of social media or a short. I kind of just knew I had to talk about them, because they are in the pop punk or punk genre. Now, when you think about the punk genre, those bands thrive under the guise of solidarity, or they thrive under the guise of not fitting into social norms, right? You think of your Green Days. You think, heck, going all the way back, you think of like the Clash, like they are there to not just kind of question what's happening around them socially, but even to kind of push the boundaries of like etiquette, of what is proper. They are just rebellious against it, and that's just kind of the core message that these bands have. And the Paradox alone fits that category. Because it's funny, in quite a few interviews that I was reading about the Paradox, a lot of times, and validly so, when they are interviewed, the interviewers like to ask them about race. They like them to comment on that, and they say, well, obviously you all are a all-black band, but you are representing in a genre that is literally, over 90% white. Pop punk has been. Now, have there been black, maybe individual artists in the pop punk scene? Of course. Even in the indie alternative scene, I think of like Block Party is my number one example. They're like one of the most biggest examples that I can think of right there. Kelly Okereke, right? You think of like TV on the radio. It is just, it's not unheard of. But especially in the pop punk era, because again, when you think of like TV on the radio and Block Party, I wouldn't really put them in the punk category. I put them in the indie alternative category. And so it's funny when they are asked about it, they almost don't like talking about it, because in their minds, they're like, hey, we already know who we are. We know, obviously the environment around us. We just want to play music. We don't care about any of that stuff. We are just here for the art. We're here to mess with the crowd that's in front of us. And it's kind of cool to see. I give them major props for that. And I really, really hope they keep continuing. So, really briefly now, because we've been talking about kind of like their come up for a little bit. Who is the Paradox, right? Well, they come from Atlanta, Georgia, and technically They had been a group since summer 2024. Now, again, in our new era and age of music in general, you don't have to solely go through record companies anymore, right? You can just simply post on social media all of your content and hope that somebody big takes a notice of what you are doing, or maybe they are tagged in a famous video and they watch it. And that's exactly what happened with the Paradox. They had just covered Basket Case by Green Day. They had posted it on the band's main Instagram and, well, I'm sure other social media pages like TikTok and so on and so forth as well. And Billy Joel saw the band covering Green Day's probably biggest song and just enjoyed it so much that he decided to message the band. Well, after some back and forth, it was eventually settled that when Green Day was set to arrive in Atlanta and perform, they actually wanted the Paradox to open up for them as a group, which they did. So they were almost immediately, going from just kind of working their separate jobs to all of a sudden they're opening up for Green Day. Well, they did such a good job on their set and kind of going their back and forth with Green Day and other punk bands that they were next invited to the When We Were Young tour to perform there. And of course, they're on a smaller stage, I'm sure, that time. But again, they're starting to gain more and more traction. They're starting to get more and more eyeballs on them, which is the case. Also, separately, I need to make a video on the When We Are Young tour because that is a huge boost into the return to the pop punk scene. But I digress. Since then, the Paradox has made new music and caught attention of, kind of on the flip side of Green Day, of Blink-182's Travis Barker. Travis enjoyed them so much that he has even recorded a song called Bender, and the song was officially released summer of 2025. And so, that is the full history so far of the band The Paradox. Again, they are a brand new up-and-coming band. There's not a lot of research to do on them because literally we are standing here watching their story unfold in front of our very eyes. A lot of people are enjoying them because they have that early 2000s pop-punk sound. It's very distinct if you've listened to a few of their music in the short videos that I've posted on this channel, but definitely give them a listen if you like pop punk. What do you guys think of the Paradox? Have you heard of them? Comment down below, and I will see you all next week.